Before I call upon Colonel Chris Austin, there's a couple of items of interest that occurred to me as I was preparing last night for this morning's opening. Just a few points of interest. It struck me during the night that, without realising it, there are at least 7 authors here today present who are responsible for books of interest to past members of the 9th Battalion, including our patron, whose history of 9RQR, Black on Blue, is due to be published shortly. Funny thing about that numeral 7, I've also realised that I don't think I'm incorrect in saying there are 7 past and current commanders of the 9th Battalion Royal Queensland Regiment here as well. And whilst 9 is our number, it's also interesting to note that 7 was our numeral at one stage in our history nearly 2 centuries ago. So store that where you may, it wasn't part of the program. Chris Austin is a past commander of 9th Battalion, as I've already alluded to. He's also the president of the 9th Battalions Association, and I did mention before that he's the vice chair of QACAC. Now let me see if I can get this right. A smarter man than me, of course, would have written this down. But I think QACAC is the pseudonym for the Queensland Advisory Committee on the commemoration of the Anzac Centenary. 10 points, you beauty. Would you please welcome Colonel Chris Austin.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends of the 9th Battalion, welcome. It's a distinct pleasure to be addressing you today. Ultimately, when we get inside and have a look at the display, we'll be able to have a look at all the hard work that Pat and his team have done over the last 12, 18 months. It's a number of people that I want to thank for bringing this together. But firstly, touch on my experience in Gallipoli. I had the pleasure of representing Queensland at the commemoration of the Battle of Lone Pine a few weeks ago. And I took the opportunity the day before that activity to walk the beaches and walk some of the terrain at Gallipoli, the terrain walked 100 years ago by those members of the 9th Battalion. It was a very sombering experience, a wonderful experience for me, but also made me at the time reflect upon the bravery of these men, the importance of Gallipoli and how we focus all of the efforts of a lot of our soldiers from World War I on that particular campaign, and the efforts of the 9th Battalion on that day. What a wonderful tribute to them, and how important it is that we have a lasting memorial, a lasting tribute to the efforts of those first ashore, the 9th Battalion. And Ray McNabb mentioned in his comments the definition of courage, that they acted despite their fears. They acted despite their fears. I think it's a great definition of courage. And nobody was shooting at me, and I wasn't ducking from mortar rounds or artillery. And that terrain was immense and very difficult. And it was, as I said, a sombering opportunity to think of the sacrifice that those soldiers made, and today we remember that sacrifice. Certainly there's a number of people that have supported this activity, and I want to thank some of those, or hopefully all of those today. Firstly, the Honourable Wayne Swan MP. Sir, thank you very much for your words this morning, but also for your support to this project through the grants program. We really appreciate that support. We'll probably come back and ask you for your support as we go through the next 3-4 years of commemoration of World War I. And thank you, sir, for addressing us this morning, and also thank you for your support in the past. Brigadier Ray McNabb, thank you for your wonderful address and your wonderful touch on the history of the 9th, particularly the Gallipoli campaign, but also talking about the 9th Battalion and where else they serve, such as the Western Front. It's wonderful you agreed to come and open this. It's very fitting that you open this display today, and indeed, thanks very much. The federal and state governments have been mentioned. And Pat did well to refer to QACAC or expand on the full name, and indeed through the Department of Veterans Affairs and also the state government through the Anzac Commemoration Unit and QACAC, we thank them, both the state government and the federal government, very much for their support of this project. Kedron Wavell RSL, thank you very much. You continue to support us in this location. You continue to provide support to the 9th Battalions Association, and your support is always greatly appreciated. And also, as Ray McNabb mentioned, the Queensland Maritime Museum, thank you very much for your support in putting together this display, and we're all a little bit interested in what your contribution looks like, and no doubt in the next 5-10 minutes we'll go in and have a look. So thank you very much. Most importantly, the committee of the association would particularly like to thank Pat O'Keefe and his volunteers. I'll come to Pat in a minute, but as much as Pat has delivered the charge behind this project and the concept, he's been well supported by a number of volunteers from the association. And in a volunteer organisation such as ours, it's always an added impost to people that have other parts of their lives, other jobs, and those that have contributed towards this display from the association and further afield. And today, of course, the local cadet unit. Thank you very much for your efforts in putting today together. I realise there's been some enormous impacts on your own personal time. I look at specific individuals in the crowd. It's greatly appreciated, and it's well worth, I believe, the volunteer efforts that you contribute to this association. Thank you. Pat O'Keefe. Pat's stepped down this year as our chair of the 9th Battalion Trust, and former CEO of the 9th, Mark Plath, has assumed that role. It doesn't mean that we're losing Pat by any means, I hope, from the association. He's contributed enormously in my role in the past, and I would think a few iterations of the role of President. No doubt every committee member or every committee position over time. And this is a very fitting culmination of this part of Pat's contribution to the 9th Battalion Association. And Pat, thank you for all of your efforts in not only designing this concept, coming up with the concept, and the charge I think Ray talked about in making it happen, coordinating all those volunteers and all those supporting agencies that helped us bring this together. But thank you for all of your efforts in the association. As I said, in this particular chapter, I look forward to the next chapter, whatever that may look like. And thank you for putting it all together for us today. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.